Hey everyone, it's Strategy Gaming Dojo here, and I just wanted to come back on this episode number 5 or part number 5 of the basic tutorial and call this part 5.2. Eventually, I'll meld it with the first part and put it all together into one video. But I did want to come back on a few things that have come up in comments, questions, and just some other things that I have explored in the game that got me thinking. And while you're first getting into the game and learning it, I wanted to bring these up because I think they're important concepts. And the first one is reserve mode. And what is reserve mode? Well, when we click on a unit, so here we've clicked on the 6th Romanian Cavalry Brigade, okay? This unit can either be in ready status, which is the normal kind of general status you'd always be in, or it could be in refit, which means it gets priority for replacements and upgrades. And if you right click on it and look at the elements, if these get damaged, these elements get damaged, it gets below its table of equipment percentage, then it would get priority for replacements and upgrade if it's in refit mode. And also, if it sits on top of a depot or it's stacked with its headquarters on top of a depot in refit mode, it gets even more priority. So keep that in mind. Also, you could put it in the strategic reserve back here, and it gets ultimate priority over everything for upgrades and replacements. So just something to keep in mind there. But the reason I brought this back up, and let's try to get back to the 6th Romanian. Where did it go? There it is. Um, Let's get right down here on it so we can see it. The reason this came up, and it was a very good comment, so thank you to whoever put this comment on the previous episode, is reserve. We didn't really talk about reserve, and it's actually a very powerful part of this game if you use it correctly. Now, arguably, it's much more beneficial to the Soviets early on in the defense, or at least kind of into 1942 or so, and then as the Axis gets on the defense, it can become very powerful for you as an Axis player. But it can be used on the attack as well. So what the heck is it? You say, what is reserve? Well, you set it to reserve status, and what that essentially means is it becomes like a tactical reserve. So I just talked about the reserve box over here. This is more of a grand strategy reserve, and so you would put it back in this box. It rests up. It comes back out of the box after a turn. This reserve status on the card and on the map, when the unit's on the map, is more like a tactical reserve, meaning it can be committed to battles that maybe it doesn't do the actually attacking or defending. And it all comes down to general discretion. And when I don't mean like the big overall general, I'm talking about a general on the battlefield has the discretion, or its general has the discretion whether to commit it into battle or not. All right. And so let's take this unit, and you see this is the cavalry brigade that's in reserve status. Let's take this unit and do an attack here. All right. And of course, it didn't do what I wanted it to do, but it will here in a second. Now the force is held. All right. Let's try that again. And now you see the 6th Romanian Cavalry Brigade is committed in the battle. And let's pause this for a second. So here is the 6th Romanian. This is the unit we attacked with right here. All right. But as you can see, the 6th Romanian Cavalry Brigade with an R right here, meaning reserve, was committed to the battle by the general, the core general in charge of these units. And so this can be very, very powerful because on the offense, if you're attacking, a unit in reserve can be committed to any battle within 3 hexes of it. So, 1, 2, 3, all the way out here. It can be committed, 1, 2, 3 to a battle over here or to a battle if you took this on. So on the attack, units in reserve, now they can't move. Once they've moved, they're no longer in reserve status. They really are supposed to be held back a little bit behind your lines and then committed uh, by the general. And again, it's AI discretion, general discretion. They have to pass certain dice rolls to get it to commit. They have to decide they want it to, first of all. Then they would have to pass certain dice rolls to get it there. I think those are administrative checks, so the administrative score would be important there. And so that's on the attack. But on the defense, a reserve unit can participate in defending a hex that's up to 6 hexes away. So let's just say that this Soviet unit here was a fairly powerful unit. It had like a 10 defense, okay? We could put that in reserve status, have it not move, and then it could participate in a battle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hexes this way, or a battle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hexes this way, based on whether the general wants it to and the general passes the requisite dice rolls. And so that can be really powerful early in the game for a Soviet player or through kind of late 41 on the defense, because you can take your really good powerful units, you can set them back a little ways from the lines, and you can have the general can have them commit to battles up here on the front even though it's back here, so it kind of gives you a more mobile type defense. Now, this counter will not go down. It's not like it will just show up on the map down here. It stays right here, but it would light up and it would say that that unit, whatever the name of it is, committed to the defense when a Soviet unit up here is attacked. All right, so that was a good point, and I'm glad somebody brought that up. That reserve is a really powerful way to defend. It can also be used on the attack, as we just saw. The only reason this unit could move this back is because this cavalry unit came in and helped. Look, it's got 33 combat value. The original attacking this one, it's the 2/8th Romanian Infantry Division, so it's just a third of that division. It happens to be labeled the second part of it, only had an 8. And so it was really the cavalry brigade that did the lion's share of work from a combat value perspective. So just always keep that in mind as a tool that you can use by putting things in reserve status. All right, so let's continue out of that and let's go to the battle locator. And I want to go back up once more. If you've been watching the Let's Play, I want to go up to this battle where 25 Panzers were lost, AFVs were lost by us as the Axis. And why do I want to go back up here? Well, not to cry about it again, although I may kind of do that. It happens. But what I wanted to do is click here, show details. And why did this come up? Well, for one thing, this is just a great screen to go look at for various battles to see who and what is doing what. All right, so you can pull general info, ground losses, ground combat, air losses, air combat, all of these tabs here, but it goes into incredible detail of what happened during the battle. And so the question was asked, how do you know when your support units actually do something? Right, and so take like artillery. It's not always apparent because their combat value may come up as a 0 or flak, like anti-air. The combat value is a 0 because ultimately that AA is not really, pushing back enemy troops. It's firing up in the air, and that doesn't really have a combat value score, but it does have an effect on the battle in the fact that, a lot of planes got shot down, a lot of Soviet planes. So how do we know how much of that was flak? How much of that was our fighters that were up here? Well, you can come down here to this more detail or show detail, and you can see all the general information. The units in the battle, we had 3. We had the 16th Panzer Division, which gave us 86 combat value, raw combat value. We had the 201st Stug, which is an artillery battalion. A Stug is basically just a self-propelled gun. Um, That gave us 9 combat value, and then we had this light flak that, gave us 0. It shot up in the air. Okay, so we had 3, one which was an on-map unit, the actual Panzer Division, and 2 support units. We also had 2 ground headquarters that were there and had some things under command, all right? Now, the general here, von Wietersheim, was the one that ultimately took credit or loss of the battle. Now, in this case, I guess he won it, but it was a Pyrrhic victory to say the least. Anyway, ground elements. It'll tell you how many were ready at the start, how many were damaged, how many were disrupted for a total of 1274. So 1274 total elements. Now that includes every gun, every mortar that was in the table of elements for these units that actually participated. So 1274, you can see the average morale, experience, fatigue. You can see how many air missions were run and of what type. So we ran 29 cap, and what is cap? If you watch War of the Pacific, that's basically flying air superiority missions over that hex. I mean, it's to keep the air superiority in a specific location. You fly cap. Okay, so we had 29 fighters up, circling over there trying to shoot down Soviet planes. Now let's go over here, and you can either take off some of this detail or put it on here. What does this mean? It shows you how many were destroyed and how many were damaged. When something in this game gets damaged, it goes back to something called the general pool. So let's say there's a mortar element that gets damaged. It'll go back to the general pool for a few turns, and you don't know exactly how long that is, but it's an estimate of how long it would take to get back to the front, and then it will be brought back in as a reinforcement element. So if something else needs a mortar, or that this unit that lost it needs a mortar, it will find its way back into a unit that needs a mortar, okay? So you can see how many were destroyed, and how many were damaged here. Axis and Soviet. All right, you can see how many, these are ground elements. These are actual men. And so, for instance, a ground element can be like a rifle squad. That's usually 6 to 8 men. And so you can see it both as an element and as the number of men that were destroyed or killed or damaged or wounded. All right. And you can go through here and see all this damage, disrupted. As units get disrupted through artillery fire or just the battle in general, they become much and much less effective. All right, so ground losses, you can see exactly what you lost. Destroyed, ground, air. You can see damage, disrupted, all right? Ground combat, you can see who did what. And so you can see how many uh, he hits or AP hits were done by everything. And so this came up, this Stug battalion, did it do anything here? Well, you see we have 20 Stugs that were part of this battle. You can see through here all of their stats for this battle, where they started firing, their range, for instance. You can see how many AP hits they had. You can see the range of those. And so this gives you just an incredible breakdown. You can see weapon stats. I mean, it breaks it down here between, this will show you what the machine guns on a Panzer IIIe did during this battle. I mean, it has that level of specificity, and you can go through here and see all of this. Now, air losses. So again, this kind of came up in relation to, did our support units do anything? So like this Army Light Flak Company, we don't necessarily know for sure. Exactly, but we do know the Soviets lost 2 planes through flak here, all right? And so it's very likely that came from this Army Light Flak Company. Air combat, you can see, kills, losses, damaged, how much damage it did, each of the Soviet aircraft, what they were out there trying to do, patrol, escort, bomb. We had 3 patrols, which is cap, CAP patrol. Um, and so it shows you what altitude they flew at, what the skill level of the pilots were, what the uh, plane type was, what command AOG it came out of. So you can see all of that. Now that I said that about the flak, let's go down here and actually see here it does tell you. Okay, okay. So this does tell you exactly how much damage even every element of the support units do. And so you can go find that. We hadn't pointed that out before. I guess we haven't completely covered all the bit of information that you see up here, but that can be very powerful information to go see that and see what each, different element, literally down to the machine guns on your tanks, what kind of damage and destruction they are doing. Okay, so that was the second thing. The third and final thing is I noticed something reading the rule book that's kind of gotten me questioning something that I told you about support units. And you may say, what? That was such a great explanation. Don't go back. But I do want to point this out because I have not min-maxed this yet to figure out exactly the best way to deal with this. But one thing I want to point out is let's go to OKH and let's go to the support units that are attached to OKH here. Okay, and let's just pick one. It doesn't matter. This heavy howitzer battalion. Now, when you pull this up and you look down here, okay, we're looking, but we look right up here, you see these support units also have combat prep points. All right. Okay, well, what does that mean exactly to what we're up to? Well, the problem is evidently when these get assigned to a new headquarters during the turn, they lose half their combat prep points. So if they had 100, they then will have 50 when they get out to that headquarters. Or if they had 50, they'll have 25 when they get out to that headquarters. That changes things, right? Now, the game is new. We're all kind of trying to figure out exactly how important these combat prep points are. I get the sense that, they're another modifier that goes into that mix for adjusted combat value. But if that's true, that they are important and that they get halved when they get reassigned out to a new headquarters during the turn, that sort of hurts that push-pull method that I was talking about earlier in, part 5 of this. That is how I've always done it, and I think most really good Axis players at least have always or have done it for years now, is that kind of push-pull method. But if this is really going to affect their effectiveness when they get down to those lower headquarters, we may have to start rethinking that because there would be other ways you could do it. And I just wanted to show you those very quickly and show you a different method of doing this. The 3 different methods really you can do it. I've already showed you the push-pull, which is you set everything to 0, you set the high commands to 9, they get pulled up 1 every turn, and then you can pull them down to core headquarters all over the map. Okay, that's the push-pull method. But let's talk about the other 2 methods, all right? One is that support level method, and I kind of showed you this, but I just wanted to go back into it for just a second. Let's go to the commander's report. Let's go to headquarters, all right? And this support level, if what I'm thinking and reading here and just kind of thinking through these combat prep points is right, well, I mean, that's what the rule book says. But as I think more about it, you may be better off setting some of these core headquarters that are going to be in battle, in the near future, setting them to like a 2, maybe even a 3, so that they start pulling in or trying to pull in at least 3 of every type of support unit. Now, it would be nice if you could say, you had like 6 different columns here for support level, and you could say, I want 3 artillery, 2 anti-aircraft, 1 construction, so on and so forth. But you can't do that. So, with this method, it's kind of an imprecise instrument. You would have to go in here, and then once it's set here, those generally will not move out of there. If you've requested 3 of artillery, and it gets you 3 of artillery, those really aren't going to move again. They're going to stay there. There's no reason for them to move. And so, you know, that might end up being the best way to do it. Now, I don't think so. I think the best way to do it, I'm going to show you now, which is let's get out of this game. Exit scenario. Let's say we're going to go down to game options. What you would do in this case is lock headquarters support. Why would you do that? Well, that means once you put support units into a headquarters, they don't move. They no longer go up the chain because the natural order is this. Whatever the support level is, that's how many the game will try to draw to that headquarters. So if the headquarters support level is 3, it'll try to draw 3 of everything. If it's 2, 2 of everything, okay? Um, it's naturally going to do that. But if you say lock, then no matter what those numbers are, once something is in a headquarters, it's not moving. Okay? So let's say that we would pick lock headquarters support here in the game options. Well, I guess I could leave that on. And let's go back to that load save game that I had just had up, and I'll show you what I think is going to end up being the most efficient way of dealing with support units, which is, I don't know, let's go to one of these headquarters. How about here? Okay, so we go here and we would pick this unit and we would say assign support units, and we would go pick what we wanted. Okay, so let's say we wanted a machine gun battalion, we wanted it to have anti-tank, and we wanted it to have a couple of artillery. Okay, now we get out of here and we see these are all in here now and they can't be moved again, but now they're locked. They're not going anywhere. If you wanted to move them out of here or get them out of here, by next turn, you would have to manually come back here and move them back out. But while they're here, they will be building up combat prep points just like the rest of the divisions. Okay? And so if you didn't move for a turn, they would build up. But if you moved a long ways in a turn, their combat prep points would kind of be the same as the divisions underneath this core. That may end up being the best way to do this. Again, I still haven't played around with it enough to know that. It could still be more efficient to pull them all the way down from OKH every time. Just let their CPP get cut in half, combat prep points, and go from there. But it's just not quite apparent yet. So I wanted to point out the other ways of doing this, which are at the commander's report, setting support levels. You can also do that from here if you want to. See support level. You could have this one go to a 2, and it will try to pull 2 of every kind of support unit to here, okay? And stay there and stay at that number. You can do it here. You can do it on the commander's report. Or you can pick lock headquarters on the game options and go get them, and then they'll stay in the core headquarters or the army headquarters if you want, um, until you manually remove them. Okay? Hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions, just put them down in the comments. I just wanted to point that out and show you the other ways to deal with support units if the method I showed you, the push-pull method, ends up not being the most efficient way to use them. All right. This has been Strategy Gaming Dojo. I hope that made sense. I hope we both learned something. I think we did. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.